Welcome to the deep dive. You're here because, like us, you want to get straight to the core of things without all the extra fluff.
Right.
And today we've got something, well, pretty fascinating to look at. It's a framework based on a summary of a 1984 lecture by Yuri Bezmenov, a former KGB agent. He called it Ideological Subversion.
Yeah, basically a model for thinking about psychological warfare tactics.
Exactly. So think psychological manipulation on a societal scale.
And just to be really clear up front,
Mhm.
our goal today isn't to judge if this model fits, current events or anything like that. We're not taking any political stance here.
No, absolutely not.
Our mission is just to understand these four stages Bezmenov laid out: demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization, purely based on what's in this lecture summary we're looking at.
Right, we're focusing on the framework itself, the ideas presented.
Psychological warfare tactics. In this specific context, it means using propaganda, psychological actions, that kind of thing, to sway opinions, emotions, attitudes, behavior. So, yeah, let's just dig into this historical perspective.
Okay, let's unpack it. Starting with stage one, demoralization. Now, the lecture summary, it presents this as definitely not a quick thing.
No, not at all.
It's described as a very long-term process. We're talking 15 to 20 years, basically the time it takes to educate a whole generation.
Mm-hmm.
And the core idea, according to the source, is about slowly instilling a specific ideology. In Bezmenov's view, that was Marxist ideology and anti-American sentiment.
And what's really interesting is the how. The source specifically points to the education system. Schools, universities are the main vehicle.
Right.
The argument presented is that if you consistently push certain ideas like leftist viewpoints, critiques of capitalism, individualism, and promote a worldview focused on, say, collective equality and fairness,
Yeah.
you can gradually shape how that generation sees the world.
So it's less about just facts and figures and more about shifting the underlying values.
Exactly. It's subtle, supposedly happens over a really long time.
Okay, so following that logic, the blog post suggests the outcome is, well, it sounds quite stark. A generation that becomes increasingly critical, maybe even hostile, towards its own country, traditions, values.
Yeah, like a slow chipping away at the foundations.
Yeah.
This demoralization, if it works as described, it runs deep.
And then once a significant chunk of the population is demoralized in this way, that's when stage two kicks in.
That's the idea presented. Destabilization follows naturally, or so the model suggests. From that shift in mindset, it's not immediate, it builds on that first stage.
Got it. Destabilization. So here the focus changes. It's now about targeting the actual systems, right? The things that make a country function.
Precisely. The summary highlights three main targets.
Yeah.
The economy, the country's foreign relations, and its defense systems.
Okay, let's break that down. For the economy.
The source talks about excessive government intervention in business as a key tactic. The thinking is too much regulation, too much control, it leads to inefficiency, stifles growth, makes the whole economic engine kind of sputter.
Right, makes sense. And foreign relations.
There, the goal is apparently to create conflict and tension with other nations, disrupt trade deals, diplomatic ties, basically isolate the country and weaken its international standing.
And defense, sort of self-explanatory.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Deliberately weakening the military, maybe through underfunding, pushing for disarmament, making the nation more vulnerable to, outside pressure or even attack.
So the main aim of destabilization, according to this model, isn't necessarily a direct attack yet. It's more about creating this widespread feeling of, what, hopelessness? Frustration?
Exactly that, hopelessness and frustration. The idea is a society that's already been demoralized and is now seeing its core systems falter becomes much more open to drastic, radical change.
Because the current system just feels like it's failing them.
Precisely. And that growing frustration, that instability in key institutions, it sets the stage for phase 3, crisis.
Okay, crisis. And based on the description in the blog post, this sounds like, oh, things really falling apart.
Yeah, it's painted as a period of intense disruption. Think widespread chaos, maybe violence, serious social unrest.
Plus a tanking economy, broken foreign relations, just general fear and uncertainty everywhere.
That's the picture. And this, the source suggests, is when those radical groups, the ones maybe pushing the initial ideology, see their chance.
They step into the vacuum.
Kind of. They exploit the chaos, push hard for a rapid, maybe even violent, change in power, structure, the whole economy. We could be talking protests, riots, maybe even revolution.
All fueled by the groundwork laid in those first two stages.
According to the model, yes. The ultimate goal here in the crisis stage is to completely tear down the old system and put up a new one based on their ideology.
It's the culmination then, the breaking point.
That's how it's presented. And then, after this period of intense upheaval, we get to the fourth and final stage in Bezmenov's model, normalization.
Normalization. Okay, that sounds better.
Yeah.
Things calm down.
Well, yes and no. The blog post actually frames it cautiously. It is a period of stability on the surface, and it could last quite a while, even decades.
But there's a catch.
There's a potential danger highlighted in the source, yeah. People might get lulled into a false sense of security. After all the chaos of the crisis, calm feels good, right? You might think the problems are solved.
But the underlying changes remain.
Exactly. The ideological shifts are embedded, the new power structures are in place, and the source points out that the groups now in charge often maintain control during normalization by suppressing dissent.
Ah, okay, so normal doesn't mean back to the way things were.
Not according to this model. It means the new system, the one reflecting that ideology introduced way back in stage one, is now the established reality. It's become normalized.
It's quite a cycle laid out like that. Demoralization, destabilization, crisis, normalization. So the blog post, it also mentioned protection, right? How a society might guard against this.
It does, yeah. It offers a few points based on reversing or resisting those stages.
What's the first one?
The first, and maybe the most fundamental, is awareness and education. Really understanding these kinds of tactics, learning to think critically about information, questioning narratives.
So basically not just blindly accepting things, developing critical thinking skills.
Absolutely. That's presented as the bedrock defense. An informed, critical population is harder to demoralize in the first place.
Makes sense. Let's point to.
Second is actively promoting and defending national values, traditions, identity. The idea is that a strong sense of shared culture and national pride acts like a shield against efforts to undermine them.
Okay, so fostering unity around shared principles. And the third point seems linked back to the destabilization stage.
It is. It stresses maintaining a strong economy, stable foreign relations, and a robust defense. Basically, keeping those pillars sturdy prevents the slide into destabilization and crisis.
A strong, stable country is just harder to knock off balance.
That's the argument. A healthy economy reduces internal discontent. Good diplomacy prevents isolation. Strong defense deters external threats. It all interconnects.
Gotcha. And the last point the source mentions for protection.
Unity, actively rejecting division. The source warns against letting society be split along lines of belief or race or, any other difference.
Because a divided society is easier to manipulate.
Exactly. Unity is presented as crucial for resisting these kinds of subversive efforts. Fragmentation makes a society vulnerable.
Okay. So wrapping this up, we've basically walked through this four-stage model of ideological subversion, demoralization, destabilization, crisis, normalization, as it was laid out by Yuri Bezmenov, and summarized in the blog post we used as our source.
And we looked at the protective measures suggested within that same framework.
Again, just to reiterate, our aim was simply to understand the specific model, this historical perspective.
Right. Not to apply it, not to validate it for today, just understand what it says. And it's interesting, Bezmenov himself is quoted in the post saying something like, despite the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions unless they are able to filter out this massive information overload.
Which loops right back to that idea of critical thinking being key.
Precisely. That ability to filter, to analyze, is paramount, according to him, and it ties into those protective measures we discussed.
So that leaves us with a final thought for you, our listener. Thinking about these stages, this framework, however you assess its relevance, what role does your own critical thinking play? How do you personally navigate the complex, often conflicting narratives you encounter every day, regardless of where they come from or what their goal might be?
Yeah, something to definitely mull over as you process all the information swirling around out there.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.